What up, Internet? I am the PCGoblin. And in today's video, we're going to be looking at the brand new Pure Rock 2 by Be Quiet. This is a 150 watt TDP air cooler. And it has 4 high performance 6mm copper heat pipes for high cooling capacity. And then it comes with a Pure Wings 2 120mm PWM fan with 9 airflow optimized fan blades and long-lasting rifle bearing for quiet cooling. Let's go ahead and unbox it and see what we get inside. That's what it looks like when you first open it. And we're greeted with the silver cooler right here. And this was on the bottom of the heat sink to protect it, and the pre-applied thermal paste. And then that's what it looks like on the inside once you remove it. Got some foam pads, mounting hardware, 1 Pure Wings 2 fan, so to help us test this and see how good this is and whatnot, we're going to be testing it with my father-in-law's brand new 6700K. He would have got a 7700K, but Intel was out of them, and you can't buy any new ones unless you're buying it for an extremely marked up price, which makes 0 sense. So because he was running the Z270 platform, which you can see in a previous build, the grandfather builds, it's on my channel, he was able to actually get a brand new 6700K at normal cost. So here this is, and he had it shipped to me, so A, I could test it and make sure it's good, but then also he wanted me to delit it so that it actually cools really well and he can use it in Puerto Rico where it's extremely hot. And so all of this is going to go into the case right here. This is a Z270 formula motherboard, and this used to actually be my motherboard. If you look at the very first video I ever did, that's what I was running. So anyways, we're going to take all that out, put all this in, and see how it works. Okay, so I've got it hooked up, very easy to install. I forgot to mention this earlier, but it works with both AMD and Intel. Sitting on the 6700K, I wiped off the pre-applied thermal paste that it came with. It looked like that was pretty good stuff. I had a pretty good application of it. But to make sure the testing's consistent throughout everything, may as well start with the thermal paste that I'm going to be using with everything. And we're actually going to do a couple tests. So this only comes with 1 fan, but I have some extra fans, so we're going to hook up another fan on the top, so it's doing both push and pull, so we can see just how much of a difference that makes. This case is open because I can't really control the fans or whatever with the pump off, or at least I don't know if I can, but either way I don't want that to be a variable, so I'm considering this more as like my test bench that I normally use for this kind of stuff. But I didn't want to pull out the motherboard and everything to put on the test bench, just to test out a CPU and whatnot. So this is the configuration we have. The 6700K, Be Quiet cooler. I need to grab my Vespula so I can use my mouse with the keyboard. Be right back. Got that taken care of. Time to turn it on, see what it does. Apparently nothing. So I've had it sitting in the machine for a while, just sitting here doing nothing, and it's idling at about 26 degrees according to NZXT CAN. So we're going to use Real Bench to push the CPU as hard as we can and see just how hot we can get it to go. So for this, we're just going to set that to infinite, get rid of image editing, OpenCL, heavy multitasking. So at this point we're going to let it run for 10 or 15 minutes, come back to it, see how hot it got, and then we're going to turn it off, go into the BIOS, overclock it, turn it back on, figure out where I've got a stable overclock, then let it run for 10 or 15 minutes, see how hot it gets, and we'll see how that goes. It's now been over 15 minutes, probably closer to about 20, But watching this, it's been staying at about 69, 70 degrees, but generally just basically staying under 70 degrees, which is pretty good. It's kind of sad since it's not overclocked, but nonetheless, it's doing its job. It's doing a great job at keeping the CPU within range. So now I'm going to turn the machine off, see how high I can get it to overclock, and then we'll run the test again to see just how hot it gets once we overclock it. I've now overclocked it. It's now sitting at 4.7 gigahertz. So far this chip hasn't been much of an overclocker, which kind of sucks. 4.8 gigahertz, even pumping 1.42 volts into it. Still couldn't get it to like be stable inside of Windows. I got this far and started running it and then it crashed. It may have been heat related, so once we delit it I might be able to get it up a bit higher. But at this point, 4.7, we just started the test and it's sitting at about 85 degrees. So we're gonna let this run for another 10 or 15 minutes, come back to it, see how hot it's averaging at. Then we're gonna throw another fan on it, start all the tests over again. We'll be right back. Alright, so now it's been running for about 15 minutes. I haven't really seen it go above 86 degrees. Been hovering at about 84, so it's pretty good, but I know when we declock it we can get even better results. Now we're going to throw on another fan just to see how much difference there is between one fan and two fans on the Be Quiet cooler. And we're back. As you can see, we've got two fans on there. One on the front pushing air through it, the fan on the back pulling it through straight into the exhaust fan, which is exhausting right out the case. The fan that I used on the back is a Be Quiet Silent Wings 3. It's a little bit more upgraded fan than what the cooler comes with, but I don't think we'll see a whole lot of difference. We're now inside of Windows, it idling. I've seen it come down as low as 26 degrees, but it's staying pretty steady at 27 degrees. So now we're going to start the test. So click that on to infinite, and then hit start. And if you remember before, this is still overclocked at 4.7 gigahertz. We saw temperature sitting at about 84, 80, well, around 85 Celsius. So already we're seeing a pretty big improvement. It's staying at about 75, it's hopped up to 81. But we'll come back after about 15 minutes to see the difference between one fan and two fans. Okay, so we're now done with about 15 minutes of testing. I saw it shoot up to about 87 degrees, but this is hovering anywhere from 83 degrees down to 77 degrees. So really not a whole lot of improvement, maybe 1 or 2 degrees. I now have set the CPU back down to factory settings, so really shouldn't be getting all that hot. I also don't think there's going to be a whole lot of point to this test because we really didn't see a whole lot of difference when it was overclocked, pushing out a lot more heat. But we've got this running. Currently it's sitting at about 53 degrees, which is actually quite a bit colder than what we saw before. So that's good, that's promising. But we'll come back in about 15 minutes and see, what we see. It's now been way past 15 minutes. I forgot to set an alarm, but either way, I haven't seen it go past 55 C, so we're looking good with two fans, under normal settings. Well, that's it for the testing. I think we got a pretty good feel for how the cooler is, but my motherboard died and it's on its way back to Asus. But if you're like most people and you're skipping right to the end because too long didn't watch, with no OC and idling, we saw about 26 degrees, didn't really move from that. And then when it was being benchmarked, we saw it running at about 69 to 70 degrees Celsius. It never really went above 70, so that's great. That's saying a lot about this cooler, I think. But then when I overclocked it to 4.7, it was running at about 84, 85 C when it was doing the benchmark, which that's a bit too hot, but considering it's overclocked and not delitted, it's actually pretty good, I think. But you wouldn't want to run it at those temperatures because, that's just too hot. Your longevity of the chip isn't going to last as long. But then things got interesting when we added two fans to the cooler, so one pushing and one pulling, and then, going right out through the back. Now at this point my room had heated up a little bit because I'd had the benchmark running for so many hours and, doing stuff with the computer on for so long. But it idled about 26, seemed to stay more at 27, but it didn't seem to have much change with the idle overall. Now when it was running, that's when temperatures got kind of weird. It never actually settled on a temperature like it did when it was, didn't have two fans. When it was running the benchmark, we saw it, jump between 77 all the way up to 83. That's kind of the common mark, and I saw it get as high as 86 C, but overall it was just sitting between 77 and 83. It couldn't make up its mind where it was at. And then things got really interesting when I put all the settings back to default so the chip is running exactly as Intel wanted it to. We saw it just sit at 54C when it was running the benchmark. So running full tilt, never went above 54, and if it did, it hit 55 and then fell right back down. Not a big change. Now, looking at the results that we got with the 2 fans versus the single fan, there's a couple of different variables that we had going on here. Obviously, we had the 2 fans. When it was overclocked with the 2 fans, it was using way more electricity than it would normally. I don't know how much more it boosted it by, but I'm sure we were probably sitting at or above the capacity for this cooler, which is why we saw it spike all over the place. Plus, on top of that, it wasn't delidded, so we were dealing with Intel's, crappy thermal paste in between the actual die and the integrated heat spreader, so the silver thing on top of the CPU. And then while it was overclocked running the test, it was adjusting the voltage, and so that's probably why we're seeing it spike all over the place. But overall, we did see a temperature drop with the 2 fans. Now, as for running it as stock, why we see a different temperature there, I think there may have been something going on with my BIOS. I'm about 99% sure I had the settings the same for the 2 fan as I did the single fan at the start of the video, but there is a small chance that I may have had a little bit more voltage when it was set back to the stock settings on the first run versus this last run. But like I said, I really don't think that's the case. Now to talk about the cooler itself. This has a lot of great things going for it. This is the silver one, and if you want to get the silver one, it should be about $39. I have links in my description below so you can purchase it. And then if you want the black version, that's $44 or around $44. Once again, links in the description. And if you use my links to purchase it, it helps my channel out a little bit, but it doesn't change anything on your end, doesn't make it more expensive. Nothing like that. It just helps my channel out. So if you use my links, thank you very much. But I think this thing looks really, really good. I like how the heat pipe stubs at the top, they're all lined up. They're not, crossed or anything like that. They're just gorgeous. And then the silver itself is a very beautiful color. You get an amazing fan with it that's silent as can be. I had this in my case when we were testing, and occasionally I put my ear up into the case to try and figure out if I could hear this, or what I was hearing was other fans inside my case. And I could never hear this, even when it was running full tilt on all the benchmarks. You can't go wrong with these fans if you're looking for something quiet. They're extremely quiet, just like the namesake. Then as for the finish, on the bottom of it, where it actually touches your CPU, it's got it sanded down to the heat pipes, and even then the heat pipes have been sanded down, so it's making direct contact with the CPU and not coming through aluminum and then the heat pipes like most heat sinks do. This is awesome. However, that's it for this video. If you liked it, go ahead and hit that like button, and if you want to see my upcoming videos, including the one where I compare this against the Cooler Master, subscribe to my channel. And I want to thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.